Good afternoon, Prynhawn. My name is Mike Erskine. I'm the PR and Events Officer at the Wales Cooperative Centre and organiser for the Tech Fest for Social Good. I just welcome my colleague Elizabeth Hudson to the stage, who's chairing today's event.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Mike, my colleague, and we're looking forward to a great session with you. I know some of you will have joined our food networks before. For anyone who's not been, we run these sessions a couple of times, 3 or 4 times a year. So if you have ideas for future themes, please get in touch with us. And I'm just going to ask Mike now to explain the Remo settings for anybody who hasn't used Remo before, if that's okay, because after the main presentations, we're going to do some networking in a sort of different looking room.
Yeah, that's right, Elizabeth. So yeah, welcome everyone to Remo. If you've been involved in any of the Digital Leaders events, you may have seen this platform before, but it's a platform we've started to use to really help improve and enhance the sort of networking experience and making sure that people can come together and get to know one another and make those connections. So if you want to update your profile during this, you can do by clicking on the three lines at the top, and you can adjust your profile and add a picture and even add in your LinkedIn details as well if you want to create those instant connections with one another. For today's event, very simple, runs like this. If you want to expand any of the screens you see on screen at the moment, you click on the 4 corners and it will expand the screen full screen. So don't do that on mine. But for the main presentations, if you're struggling to read the words, then do click on those 4 corners and it will expand full screen for you. We also have options for people you can message one another by clicking on the chat function. You can message one another in the room, as well as posting general chats into the general chat box. So people can, if you want to now, just to hello and introduce yourself, whoever's in the room, that'd be great if you can post that into the chat now. When we come on to the question and answer section, there is a Q&A tab you'll see on the third tab along on those options. And so please do post any questions you have into the Q&A. It just keeps it nice and clean and separate in that section. You can also upvote on the questions. So if there's a question there that you would like to ask the panel and similar sort of topic, then please upvote on that and it will bump it up to the top. We'll get through many of those questions as we can. But we all also have opportunity afterwards to go back to a networking environment. You'll see maybe when you joined, there's individual tables. You can hop from table to table, just a simple double click of the button. And you can have private table chats. You've got an interactive whiteboard you can share. Lots of different features there. So I think that wraps it up, Elizabeth. So I will disappear now and leave it to yourself and the experts and the speakers to showcase what they're up to.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Well, we've got a really exciting session planned for you. We've got Dr. Luke Tyler from TechTivy, going to tell us all about the vertical growing project in North Wales. And we've got Lynn Davis from the Open Food Network. Really excited to hear all about the platform cooperative that they run their project from. And then we've got Alex, who you might have heard talk before at one of our networks, and he's going to update us on Superbox, on their subscription model. And I think their website, a brand new website, is ready to go from today. And then we've got about 10 minutes for questions and answers. And then, as Mike said, we'll move into the networking side. Please stay for that, because we'd love your feedback on how that works as well. And I know a couple of you, I think, are going to coming up. We've got a news update section at the end. We've just got a couple of announcements, so that'd be great to hear. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Social Business Wales. If you're not familiar with us, we're a growth and a new start support service for social businesses. So that could be cooperative social enterprises, employee-owned businesses, mutuals, community-owned businesses. So if you're not already in touch with your local advisor and you're in Wales, then please get in touch with us. My email's at the end, or the SBW email address will be at the end. And at the end of this session as well, all our contact details will be sent to you on a Padlet. So you'll get the link at the end of the session, all the presentations from today, and we've got loads of links there for useful stuff and other resources that'll all be on the Padlet link. So I'll pop that in the chat at the end for you, okay? So on to our first speaker, Dr. Luke Tyler, can I call you up to the podium, please?
Hello, Prananda. So I'm just going to do the screen share for a moment. There we go. Okay, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be part of this this event with the Wales Co-op, and really looking forward to being part of such an interesting panel. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the session. I work for Menter Mon. We're a social enterprise based on Anglesey in North Wales, and we operate across the North Wales region. And TechTyfi is our first agri-tech project, or it's turning into more of a program of agri-tech interventions. And we're just sort of coming to the end of the pilot phase of this, and are now looking at ways of upscaling and potential for vertical farming as a technology to improve the sustainability of local food production. So what I'm going to talk about briefly today is what the work we've been doing with our growers. We have a very active growers group and people we've been supporting, how this has translated into sustainable food supply chains and the potential for the future. I'm also going to talk a bit about some of the crops and the advantages that the methods, the tech itself has actually contributed to improve sustainability of local food systems. So vertical farming is a collective name we give to controlled environment agriculture, indoor growing. Usually we use it in a context of hydroponics, whereby the plants receive nutrition from water rather than from the soil, and a mineral solution dissolved into that. So there are some really big advantages in terms of sustainability from using this technique. It uses nutrition in a more efficient way, the nutrients themselves. Water use efficiency is also improved. Pesticides aren't usually used, and as a result, this is very much in line with protecting watercourses and water quality objectives. By growing food closer to the point of use that you would otherwise would not be able to grow, we're able to reduce packaging and transportation costs, food miles. And in Wales, this is particularly important because we have quite an important hospitality sector in North Wales, very much linked to tourism, and a lot of the sort of high-value fresh produce that would be grown there would be used in hospitality is often imported. And by growing it locally, we're able to reduce the food miles. This has sort of been the premise, and what we've done is we started off with a pilot project whereby we invited applications for use of various vertical farming systems that we have purchased, and these would be aimed at growing high-value crops, microgreens, specialty leaves, leafy greens, and these were fully funded for a year. And growers would then receive a support through the skills sharing workshops, specific training sessions, in order to allow the bypass to bypass the initial difficulties of people not having had experience with vertical farming, and to give them an opportunity whereby to take things forwards, and in so doing address the particular barrier of the startup cost and skills barrier. Our emphasis has been on developing supply chains. It's not actually enormously difficult once you have a system and you know what you're doing to grow produce. The difficulty has been ensuring that these can be linked to sustainable markets that will be long-term viable. And we're doing this in a sort of a collaborative fashion. We're very keen to sort of we're not for profit. We're interested in strengthening the economy and our local communities, and working with growers to do this. So we've been looking particularly at these routes to market, and Again, the hospitality sector has been part of our main sort of targets sector. By growing high value produce, we're able to grow them to spec, as it were, much greater degree of control over the plants that you grow in controlled environment agriculture than in sort of polytunnels or in fields. And again, some of this produce that I'll talk about in a moment has got very short lifespans, and the value is linked very much to the freshness. So the closer it is grown and sold to the point of use, the more valuable it is. So in this case, some of the crops I'm going to talk about are actually more valuable if grown by a local grower than shipped into a supermarket. And we've been looking at ways to reduce bruising and wastage that you would get with these crops otherwise. Again, this is linked to a reduction in packaging and the refrigeration and transport costs, food miles. And what we found that's been really interesting, and a key message I'd like to sort of get out there, is that we found that the value of the links that we've made with suppliers and outlets, chefs, restaurants, has been more important than simply the number of people living in the area or the population density. So it's the relationship value, which was initially a question: can we do this in the rural sector? But it really does seem that that there are always going to be relationships that can be made, and it's the value of these with these stakeholders and partners that is more important than simply the population density. So that's been a really interesting sort of finding, that we're still looking for ways to more sort of results from. So just going to quickly talk about some of these crops that we are able to grow. First of all is pea shoots. You're looking at a crop of them at the moment. These are, you can grow a number of these rotations, 3 to 5 from a single pea. They grow very nicely in flood and drain vertical farm systems, and they're very much in demand by restaurants. We've been growing microgreens. These are we're looking at 2 sort of radish varieties we grow here. They're very nutritionally dense, and they add colour, they add flavour. They're extremely tasty and valued for that sort of purpose. Sprouted broccoli, again, these are also valuable for the sort of nutritional density and the protein concentrations within the tissue. Most interestingly, from a personal perspective, I really enjoy growing these micro leeks, which are, they taste similar to sort of adult leeks, but they're much sweeter, a little bit more like a spring onion, and they've proved very popular with any of our every tasting session we've done. And again, it's very nice to sort of connect to the cultural element of the landscape with the leeks. So we've had many more of these crops, and our growers have been looking at more of them. I'm going to quickly run over some of our success stories. First of all, we have Baileys and Partners, who have been a really sort of excellent partner in this project, and they've only been going a few months, but in that time they've already built, using our equipment, a successful business startup. They've been supplying in Harlech local markets. They've got their own packaging, which is biodegradable, and as you can see, they're stacked so as to avoid the bruising and keeping the produce fresh. And they're already in the process of creating a business plan to upscale the work they're doing with our support. Very good results using social media, very dedicated and regular posting, and a number of different products, building very good relationships with their customers, and of course ensuring that there's no waste in the process, as they are traditional livestock farmers as well. Hooton's Homegrown is on the island. We've worked with them for some time now. A number of produce was trialed, coriander, spinach, watercress. Watercress proved the most successful, and was grown to right the way through the pandemic, and was proved very popular on the shops. It was being consumed much faster than it could be grown, and we'd really like to sort of continue working with Hooton's on that. Clay ball system was very interesting. Again, it was a screwing substrate that didn't need to be recycled at all. Very good buffering capacity, a very good sort of cation exchange surface, stored the heat very nicely. Some really good results there. Coleg Llyfon, which is the agricultural college just south of Caernarfon, another project partner. and we've been growing lettuce and strawberries with them. And one of the really interesting things there we managed to see is the use of wool from the local farms as a growing substrate for strawberries. Here you're looking at wool is a really good. It's got a number of very good properties. It's antimicrobial, good sort of buffering capacity. Once it's wet, it holds water quite nicely. It provides a very good sort of structure for the roots to grow through. And we've been so pleased with this. We're going to do another project whereby we look at developing wool as a specific growth substrate for this this kind of crop. Another thing we've been doing is putting vertical farms into schools, and this is our first session with Ysgol Caergybi or Holyhead. Holyhead School, we've supplied them with a vertical farm and have been doing sessions with students, and they've been developing their own product, which has been a sort of a veg bag, and they're providing that to staff and teachers and parents, and local restaurants have actually heard about this, and it's now hopefully going to be part of their curriculum next year, and we're applying for more funding to sort of do this across the region with other schools and to integrate vertical farming as part of the new Donaldson model multidisciplinary teaching platform. Just to round off, what we're looking to do in the future as well is we're in the process of building a new facility here at Menai Science Park, where I'm speaking, which will be a commercial scale vertical farm, and it will be a resource for local growers. There will be a library resource for people to have space to use a number of different options for growing their own produce if they don't have the space. We're going to look at research options as well. We're going to work with the university and the science park to look at continuing to push this this technology and to show what it's able to do in the local food supply chain. So thank you very much for listening. That's about the end of my 10 minutes. And are there any questions?
That's great. Thank you, Luke. Thank you very much. We've got time for some questions at the end, so perhaps group them all together. That might just make sure we fit everybody in. Thank you so much. That's absolutely fascinating. I think you can tell by the chat that other people are really interested in what you've talked about there. It sounds great. So now, can I call up Lynn, please, to the stage? So yeah, Luke, if you turn your camera off and your mic off, and Lynn, you pop yours on, that'd be fantastic. So Lynn's going to tell us all about the Open Food Network. I'm delighted to have you back. I think you came to talk on one of our sessions about platform cooperatives, but that would be fantastic if you can tell us all a bit more about Open Food Network.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, and it's really nice to be back again. Let me do the awkward technical sharing screen process. Is all sharing correctly. So hi, yes, Open Food Network, as Elizabeth just mentioned, we're a platform cooperative, and I'll talk a bit more about that during this WeChat. But yeah, we're focused on kind of enabling community-led food systems. That's where we see our tech fitting into this kind of food system puzzle. And yeah, I guess you can say that we're on a mission. We have a vision. Fundamentally, it's about transitioning from uniformity to diversity. You can kind of see this route that both on the fields and in our supply chains, we've taken this journey over the past decades to kind of streamline and scale things, you know, with these enormous economies of scale dictating decisions on how we operate our world. And actually, if our 21st century puzzle is about diversity, we need to be thinking about that, not just on the land itself, bringing as much vibrant life back onto our landscapes, but also in our communities, through our economy, across representation, in our businesses, you know, like how do we build as much diversity into how we create our food system as possible? And that's what we're basically looking at playing our little role within as the Open Food Network. So what this means is that we need to build and have tools for an incredibly diverse range of businesses and business models, like diverse agroecological food production, sustainable food production. It requires diverse routes to market. We're thinking about smaller harvests that happen more regularly with more diverse crops. Some of them can go really local. Everybody wants carrots. Some of them might be a bit more niche to create more of that diversity on the farm, and maybe that needs to have a wider distribution radius. So suddenly it goes from this kind of simple supply chain into more complex webs and networks, almost like a root system or a mycelial network, getting nutrients from across the landscape into people's homes as it's needed, and also importantly getting it back out again. Some of the valueless products, in our supply chain, things like packaging and waste. So we're really this is the kind of complex problems that we're exploring in different ways. And I guess we focus on the kind of aggregation. What does it mean to bring diverse producers together and to come, to look at it through a principle of subsidiarity? What is the most efficient or effective scale to work at? Some things benefit from huge scales and some things benefit from really local scales. I'll talk a little more about that as we go. Yeah, we work across the UK and across the world, but we're very active in Wales. We have 2 of the hubs that we work with, Bank Organics, and they're kind of a subscription-based veg box scheme. So they're kind of growing for 70 different veg boxes, and everybody gets a veg box. All of the shoppers get a veg box every week from the farm, full of beautiful, diverse, sustainable veg. Aber Food Hub's another one. This kind of came out of a community-led COVID response, turning the farmers market into a online food hub. And it's been really popular. The online food hub side is continuing to thrive even as things open up. And I think the two can complement each other. Obviously, coming together in the vibrancy of a farmer's market is a beautiful thing and something that we want to bring back into the world. But at the same time, the reliability of orders from an online component is really important, because as anyone who's been in farmers markets knows, if it rains, then you've got all this harvested produce that you just don't sell. So kind of how can the tech complement the face-to-face interpersonal markets and interactions? So our strategy is really about building commons. And so the way that we're doing this, like I said before, we work on a principle of subsidiarity. So the idea of growing a carrot, do that super locally. You're going to do that on that bit of soil right there. But when it comes to building software, it's, contrary to what the tech monoliths might have us believe, building software is expensive. It's a difficult process. Apple's coming out with new iPhones all the time, and it constantly needs to be updated. There's new legislation around secure card payments. It's a bit of a mess and a bit of a maze. And actually, if every grower had to do their own software, it wouldn't work. So what we found is that the problems are very similar, not just in Wales, not just across the UK, but all over the world. And so we're collectively building this software platform and bringing together the knowledge and the skills and the resources as a global community, so that the carrot grower doesn't actually have to pay much at all for the platform. And this is how we're thinking about it, how we're thinking about solving this problem. And so this talk is about how we can strengthen local food supplies with technology. And so we kind of see this in 2 ways. One of this is being an open source platform cooperative. And that means, so as a platform cooperative, we are kind of run and owned by the members ourselves. We are a collective of community food enterprises. Everyone contributes towards the platform in terms of both features. So if people want specific features, they might pay for them, but they're going into the global commons of open source tools that everyone can use. And that means that, if you're able to get some funding to implement a specific feature on the platform, then a farmer in Nigeria can also benefit from that. And it is just fascinating when it comes to short food supply chains. Actually, the problems are very similar all over the world. It's not like this is a global north problem. In fact, this is a journey of convergence, and we're really seeing this as tech supports the development of short supply chains just across the world. It also means, as a platform cooperative, that the learning exchanges can happen. And this, one thing that we found during COVID that was really inspiring, before our governments were even hinting that we were going to lock down, our community in Italy were talking to us about the processes that were going on there. We linked with our community in China, talking about how they'd been responding for months. And we were able to share this learning across the UK, so that, even though maybe our governments weren't telling us that we needed to be cautious or lock down, we could start preparing. And that meant that we were really well placed. And, when supermarkets didn't necessarily have enough produce on the shelves, the community food businesses that we were working with, they supplied every order. Even some of them that grew tenfold in the space of a few weeks were able to supply every order because we were able to do this collaborative learning together. So it really showed the kind of power and resilience of working in this way, which I found very inspiring. And the second way that we're currently exploring strengthening local food supplies for tech is around this idea of data interoperability. So, we're not the only platform. Obviously, there's Swapperbox and others as well who are operating in this space. One of the challenges that we face as kind of smaller organizations is that all the data is kind of siloed. And so you find that, say, producers will have to add their produce onto Swapperbox, as well as Open Food Network shop, as well as onto maybe a Shopify store or some other kind of outlet like that. And then they have to balance the stock between them. There's no way that they can add produce in one, and then when it sells somewhere else, have the stock updated. This creates an admin load. There's also problems around, say, distribution logistics. You can't really argue with the fact that there are some things that are efficient at scale, like distribution logistics. If you've got lots of small enterprises driving past each other, doing deliveries all the time, then that's going to add a carbon impact and an ecological footprint that's greater than if that was all unified under one place. So we're exploring what does it mean to enable this diversity of lots of food enterprises, but benefit from the economies of scale by sharing data. And this is a new project that we're exploring. So really, it's definitely one that I'm keen to explore more. And maybe if that interests anyone, we can talk about it in the questions. But yeah, that's probably enough from me. And yeah, looking forward to more conversations as we go on.
Well, that's great, Lynn. Thank you so much. I'm sure people were really interested in what you said there. And I'm just thinking about your last comment as well about all the little businesses driving around making their deliveries. I do that myself. And, thinking, how can we do this better? I'm sure there were people want to, maybe talk to you about that. Me for one, anyway. And that, all really interesting. And if you haven't had a look at the Open Food Network platform yet, please have a look at it. It's really maybe can help you as a business, or if not, maybe if you're here because you support social enterprises, maybe you can pass that link on to them. So thank you so much, Lynn. And I'm sure we'll take some questions for you later. So we're going to move on now to our final speaker. So that's Alex from Swapperbox, and here he is, direct from the kitchen. Tell us all about Wales's own recipe box.
Hello. I've got some feedback. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Pleasure to see you all. I'm here today just to give a bit more of info about the overview of Swapperbox and impacts and opportunities across the food sector here in Wales and the social enterprise sector, and matching those two together. Next slide, please, Mike. What is Swapperbox? Wales' own recipe box service. It's a subscription service. It's an emerging sector here in Wales, and it's following the national growth across the UK, and we're just sort of trying to seize that opportunity to push on and be Wales's premium recipe box subscription service. We operate fully digitally via a bespoke e-commerce platform. We use a WordPress site with WooCommerce Pro and lots of plugins. We did try and use the Shopify, but we found that it wasn't detailed enough for in its complexity regarding subscription functionality and some design features as well. So that's the platform route that we've chosen. Yeah, we are commercially focused and a social enterprise, and very ambitious, but building on strategy and research with consumer profiling, and the focus to, within 3 years, to create 24 sustainable careers and to be market leader here in Wales. As I mentioned, we're a social enterprise. As part of our social action, reinvent sustainable careers, sector-specific training, which is something that we've just switched over now. Initially, when we set up during COVID, we were quite concerned about the upcoming redundancies in the hospitality sector. Now that's changed, it's kind of flipped on its head, and there's a skills shortage across that sector, and so we want to be quite flexible and team up with some colleges to offer sort of sector-specific training and really open the doors beyond just hospitality within the food system to all the different sort of jobs and roles that the digital sector can sort of help with as well. Community food chain education programs and regenerative agriculture. And this is really deeds, not words. You know, initially we're using a funded project outside of our sort of commercial aspect, running community food workshops and partnerships across the county with primary schools and high schools to deliver, and the NHS, Public Health Wales, to deliver a nutritional skills for life programme that addresses some of the issues across the end users who find themselves in need of local food banks and things like that. Again, pushing for quite a holistic approach across the county to deal with some of the socio-economic issues around the food system and food security. We currently have about over 40 suppliers, 35 of which within 60 miles of headquarters here in Carmarthen. And that includes different scales of supply, from small one planet developments to larger scale sort of organic cooperatives. We're always looking to expand and bring tech in to manage this opportunity, really, both at an ordering level, but as an upskilling suppliers, and with the potential, as I'll talk later about, sort of dynamic food procurement platforms and building on what the amazing work that Open Food Network are doing as well. So yeah, it's okay. Delivering on average 150 recipe kits per week. This equates to a minimum of 48 kilos of fresh produce within the supply chain. And it's really about fixing demand and organic business growth, which will support the food system as we grow together. Next slide, please, Mike. Impact. This is we are creating a new product for the market. We've obviously seen the growth across the UK, and we know that Wales is an emerging sector. And we really want to create a new avenue for suppliers and customers, collate supply through a new product, which is the Recipe Box service, improving access and knowledge of Welsh ingredients, sort of wider than just our customer base as well. Fighting off national competition, we are going up against really strong established competition, but delivering the message of our USPs, Welsh suppliers, social enterprise, award-winning Welsh chefs, and promoting up-and-coming entrepreneurship through collaboration. Supporting circular foundational economy, and to do this as well, kind of measuring the impact of this on the resilience of the food system, carbon reduction, supply chain jobs. For example, for every £1 invested in local food, we see a £3 return through socio and economic outlets. Positive environmental impact, regenerative diets, regenerative in terms of regenerating the land through the amazing suppliers that we have here in Wales, and doing to rebuild our nation in terms of soil health, environmental issues as well. And the message of consumer action and how that can play a large part. Often we are all aware of the issues, we just lack opportunity as consumers to make a real difference. And that's one of the opportunities we want to give our customer base, is to start the journey on this regenerative diet, where the choices you make, the buying choices you make, can have a real positive impact. Expanding supplier reach, both in-house and through promotion, as I mentioned in my first point, not only through providing stability in demand, but promoting suppliers who share our ethics and values. We're quite open, and we want to do as much as we can for each other. Social action on developing a better Welsh food system. I mean, it's education, it's access, and it's political pressure. And I think sometimes we miss opportunities as social enterprises and as food businesses about giving Welsh Government and local authority opportunities to action some of this strategy. You know, we hear a lot of words and messages from local and national government, but I think sometimes we can provide them with the answers to support that. And yeah, this isn't something new. We are just trying to do it here in Wales. Next slide, please, Mike. Opportunity, dynamic food procurement, as Lynn mentioned with the open, you know, different tech systems that can make ordering more efficient. We've seen great examples of across the border in England, like the Southwest Food Hub, and what Open Food Network have done down in Plymouth as well. Engaging suppliers and enabling suppliers to sort of pick to order and reduce that cost, at the same time providing us with an amazing product through fresh veg. You know, it's super nutritious, it's super fresh, and that will really help customers understand the difference between that and some supermarket produce that they might buy. Again, opportunities within tech, within sort of from what Luke was saying about Tectavi, is plugging gaps in seasonality and really reducing that reliance on imports as well. Artificial intelligence, something I know not much about, but we know that some of our competitors use this, and we're keen to explore how this can positively impact our business and maintain jobs at the same time. Data sharing for good, as Lynn mentioned just on the end there, we make our customers aware of what data we collect and how we can share that with other social enterprises to be a collective force for good. Stability and growth, we're all about food security, supply security, and growth within our sector to encourage a higher percentage of the Welsh pound goes back to Welsh producers and the Welsh economy. Tech for good, just mentioned, open source, collaboration, and new job creation for a digital Wales. And we want to keep some of the skills and the careers in Wales to, again, boost the local economy. Education and inspiration of the next generation of social entrepreneurs. Been fortunate enough to be asked in to speak at local primary schools and secondary education to really do my best to inspire the next generation. And something like 50% of all social enterprise is less than 5 years old. So there's a real revolution here, and we need to guide our young people into the sector so we can have the greatest positive impact. Excuse me. Collaboration, cooperation, and cohesion across all sectors. We're talking about the public, private, and third sector. We've been working here in Carmarthenshire with the Public Service Board on a local food through public procurement project about getting local food onto the public plate and exploring the sort of the transitional period and the next steps towards that. And really highlighting sort of how successful these triumvirates of stakeholders can work together. And again, rebuild our nation for future generations. And that is me. Next slide, please. Just some lovely pictures of Welsh produce and our boxes. And thank you all very much for listening to me. And fantastic opportunity to be involved in this great event. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Alex. That was fantastic. I think we really loved hearing what you got to say there, and thank you very much for that. It's very inspiring what you're working on there. Really great. So it's over to you guys now for some questions. There's a couple of questions already in the Q&A. And if something's popped into your head, you just want to know how something works, or what the speakers thought about something, or if they'd be interested in working with you, pop it in the chat there, and we'll try and get it answered for you. So we've got a few minutes now for questions, and then I've got some news updates as well. And before I forget, if there's anyone there from Social Farms and Gardens, I think you had a vertical growing program as well. So if there's anyone in the audience who wants to give a quick mention of that project in comparison to Luke's, then that's fine as well. So should we have a look at those questions?
Yeah, well, brilliant. Should we bring everyone back up to the stage? So Lynn, Alex, and Luke, if you all want to come back up onto the stage, and then we can chat through those questions. And if there's anything else you want to add, because I know a lot of you were just, probably even today has made you kind of raised awareness around what's else is going on around Wales. So it'd be great just to get your sort of initial reaction as speakers to the stuff that Luke is doing, Alex is doing, Lynn's doing, how you could even work together going forward. I don't know, that'll be the first question for me, really, about the potential of collaboration, really, it's been the big buzzword, really, for today. You wanted to come in there, Lynn?
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe I'll just quickly come in fast. But so we've been one thing that we're actively really exploring this, because we're really inspired by a French group called the Dada Food Consortium, and what they've been doing is bringing together different food platforms from across France, like the Food Assembly that we may remember, and some of the really quite large ones, in the billions of turnover type enterprises. And they've come together and figured out what does it look like to create kind of a shared data structure around their models, and with some really kind of inspiring results that are starting to emerge. So we're really inspired by their process and actually embarking on it at the moment. We're having a webinar on this actually on July 7th. So watch out for invitation to that, and I'd be happy to share any links or something like that too. The Data Food Consortium, very inspiring group.
Yeah, I know you made a point about kind of moving away from competitive thinking. I think obviously, so Alex is kind of, and Luke, all in that space of, the social enterprise model and cooperativism. So I think that's a really good point, really, about, really exploring that collaboration to its fill. Is there anything you want to add in there, Alex, in terms of how you found since you started this journey, because you kind of opened your eyes up to what's out there as well and what you've learned from?
Every single webinar or meeting or network gathering, you always learn about a different project that's happening. Wales can feel like quite a small country, but there's some amazing projects out there. And yeah, it was great to hear when Luke mentioned about that next stage up for commercial growing and the opportunities that can provide. And I think it's, from a personal point of view, I'd really like to see something like that adopted into the public procurement process, with measures on social and environmental impact as well. And lots of opportunity. I think it's fantastic.
Brilliant. I think we do have Louise Nielsen. So she's going to come and talk about Social Farms and Gardens. She's actually here, Elizabeth. So I'm going to invite Louise to the stage. I'm just going to...
Yeah. While Louise is coming in, there was a question, Luke, about the life cycle of the wool substrate. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes. So with the wool substrate, we've been finding that most of the work we've been doing has been on a small scale, and as such, we've been looking at growing crops that have sort of 3-week, 4-week sort of cycle in them, and sort of lettuce, spinach, strawberries, and the wool's obviously been in those cycles. It's been quite good. It's not been harbouring sort of algae or any of the sort of problems that you get in hydroponics. It's got some natural antimicrobial, antifungal properties. We've been trying some woolen matting substrates, which has been sort of a blend of wool and recycled carpet. And that's been giving really good results for sort of pea shoots and microgreens. Really good for the microgreens. And again, it lasts, sort of as long as the growing process goes. There's not been any sort of difficulty with it. We can't really recycle them, as in regrow them, and at the moment you can't do that with the matting substrate anyway. And the problem is with carpets and other sort of current alternatives on the market, there's not really any way of recycling carpet when it's had produce grown in it. So what we'd really like to do is have a compostable situation if we have to use anything that is a consumable. So wool obviously would be compostable for that, and as to how long we can get it, whether there's sort of any way around having to compost it at all, these are things we'd really like to find out. Studies into that and doing some of that work on our wool project. And at the moment, wool is retailing about £300 a ton around here anyway. And that's a fifth of what it was 10 years ago, after the collapse of the Irish market. So it's really hard for people to sell wool at the moment, and it's not sustainable. And we're looking for other ways of using local products, sort of rural products, in a way that is fitting in with sort of new processes and new tech. So that's just one thing we're doing. Another project that's going on at Mentomon is we're making sort of food boxes, wool as an insulation, local wool as an insulant for this sort of food. And again, that's another sort of use that's coming from it. And it's all very much ongoing work, and it's really interesting stuff. And I'm hoping that we'll get some. The next time we get to talk about it, there'll be some really good results to share with people.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks. So, Louise from Social Farms Garden. Hi. Thanks for jumping in there. Do you want to just give a really quick update about the vertical growing program that you've been involved in? And there is a link to your recent report on the Padlet. Okay.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've just finished a project which was funded through Foundational Economy. So we've put in 3 growing sites into 3 local communities for them to run the CEA vertical farming systems themselves. And we've also introduced an educational site at Explore in Wrexham. So we're really focusing on how we make it sustainable for communities to grow their own food. So we're looking at 4 different growing systems. We've put 2 different software systems in, so looking at how we can optimize growing conditions and align between the different sites. We're evaluating route to market and sort of economic viability for those communities, as well as looking at green energy. We're introducing some new horticulture modules in collaboration with the local colleges. We're also looking at nutritional benefits and how we can utilize the systems for crops other than just microgreens. So whether we look at growing fruit trees and whether the delivery of saplings through vertical farming actually provides better quality, higher nutritional delivery produce at the end of it. And we're also running primary and secondary school educational programs, which are starting this month and will be running through until 2022. So really trying to get the whole STEM process covered within school curriculum, but also around leadership and the marketing and all of the wider functionality and requirements for being involved in that kind of environment. So the communities are really excited. They've been wholeheartedly throwing themselves into getting growing and selling, and it'll be really interesting to see what results we get when we do full evaluations as we keep going through these crop cycles.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Louise. So if you want to find out more about this and you didn't catch the name, it's if you look at the Social Farms and Gardens report there that's on the Padlet link, and maybe you can connect with Louise. If you're happy to put your emails in the chat, you can do that as well. And so I'll just quickly pick up on a couple more points in the questions, and then we'll just have a few minutes left to network at the end. Louise a different Louise, sorry, has come up with a great question here about, you know, the kind of Deliveroo type models. And I think that links back to that platform co-op concept of how do we make it easy for producers to get a bigger cut of the final product. So how can we encourage consumers to use these fairer models instead of the more kind of corporate models? Have any of the speakers got any thoughts on that one? Just really quickly, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'm sure we all have thoughts on that. And partly that it's just incredibly difficult because when you're up against Deliveroo with a huge marketing budget, we just don't reach the same. We don't have the same reach, and so putting that really local focus in is incredibly important. But yeah, I think also kind of exploring how we can create the investment in some of the more community-driven and platform cooperative models. Investment for open source is incredibly difficult because you lose that kind of intellectual property, but that intellectual property is actually kind of making things private for the public loss rather than putting things into the, you know, into that space of open collaboration. So I think we can be looking at the investment side for, you know, public code. Public money for public code. That's the hashtag. And also, yeah, kind of putting that focus in locally as much as we can to encourage supporting our own businesses around us.
Thank you. Luke or Alex, have you got anything to add, or shall I move on?
No, yeah, it's a very complex issue. Like you say, we're going up against some big players in the industry, but I feel that there is a movement, and if we can capitalize on that, and, you know, being a social enterprise, it's not just about the product, it's about what we do with our profits. You know, people don't necessarily buy your product because you're a social enterprise, but they might keep buying your product because they know that exactly the transparency, where your money's going, how much of it goes to the producers, paying people a fair price, but still providing the customer with a good service because you've got access to ingredients that they might not be able to get in the supermarket or delivered to their door.
Yeah, truly believe that communicating your social impact is really, really key. Luke, do you want to add anything in?
I think I'm learning quite a lot about this sort of stuff at the moment. So I'm happy to sort of listen and learn from the people who are doing the work on it.
That's fine. That's great. So I've got another quick question, Alex, about what type of plugin are you used on the subscription model? If you know the answer to that one.
I know that we use Woo discount rules for more flexibility, but I don't. We've just had a new website launched the last couple of days, so no. But I can give you my web developer's email address, and you can bombard them with questions.
Well, that might be handy because sometimes people want to know this and they're too scared to ask. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I think that's all of the questions covered, but I've got just a couple of quick news announcements, if that's okay, because we've got some really nice news to bring to you. I don't know if, Mike, do you want the speakers to turn their cameras off now?
Oh, yeah, if they want to, well, keep them on, actually. We can say a thank you and goodbye at the end. Yeah, stay on, guys.
Okay. That's great, because we need to ask Pearl, if you're still here, Pearl Costello from Food Cardiff. I think you've got some nice news to share with us. If you're there, Pearl, do you want to turn your camera on and your mic on, and then you'll be called up to the stage?
Okay, one sec. I'll bring Pearl up to the stage now.
I'm here.
Yeah,
thanks. Elizabeth invited me to share the good news that some of you might have heard, that Cardiff as a city has been awarded Silver Sustainable Food Places status. So, thank you. We're really excited. some of you will have seen me at a previous meeting where we were talking about what we were doing around basically making healthy, sustainable, ethical food the norm across the city, whether that's through food businesses, through schools, through procurement, everything and everyone being involved. So it's really, really great news to share. And we're really excited that there's, I think, another 4 places and counting joining the network across Wales as well. So yeah, it's a celebration for Cardiff, but also for everyone else getting involved across the country too. So thank you. And if you go to foodcardiff.com, you can see all about it.
Oh, right, cardiff.com.
Oh, sorry, foodcardiff.com.
Brilliant. You can pop the link in if you want. Sorry, I've just got a dog visiting me now. And the other bit of news, just wanted to update you. There's a new Veg 2021 report. I put that on the Padlet, and that's part of the Peas Please campaign, which I think Food Sense Wales is also part of this, and there might be someone from that on as well today. And just one of the headline things is that 1/3 of kids eat less than 1 portion of fruit and veg a day. So it's like still quite a lot of work for us to be getting on with. So that report's on there as well. And Natasha's Law, I don't know how many of you are actually producing food, but that's coming in October, and it's really important that food producers are ready for that with labelling. That's pre-packed for direct sale. There's links on there to help you with that as well. And what else was I going to tell you? I think that might be it for now. So
I forgot about props.
So sorry.
People bring their props. And if there's any live veg, here we go, Alex.
Yes, live veg. And I did take a picture of mine, but it's easier to show you. I've got some strawberries here. I've been making strawberry ice lollies. So, Mike, should we try going into our networking tables and just give it a bash?
Yeah, let's give it a bash. There's how many people are still there in the room, but yeah, we'll go back to the tables now. So if the guys and speakers have got some time just to stick around for a little bit, if people have got any further questions or any want to grab you for some one-to-one chats, then that would be great. We'll be keeping the room open for the next 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll go from there. Brilliant.
And thank you so much, everyone, for your presentations and participating and questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. See you, everyone. Back to the floor.